Jonathan, welcome.
Thanks, Melina. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you today. So you're a serial healthcare entrepreneur. You're also the nephew of George H.W. Bush and the cousin of George W. Bush. My question is, why not politics? Why healthcare?
Well, there's sort of a Bush unwritten rule that you need to have signed both sides of the paycheck before you try to tell other people what to do with their tax
Haven't
money.
you done both?
So I look at it. I moved to Maine, which is a poor state that's kind of a tough business environment, and I'm trying to help out as well as I can in my community.
Local politics.
But I'm, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But do you see, national stage?
I mean, I hope we all do, especially these days. I think we should all be figuring out how to lean in rather than yell at the TV. The TV just doesn't care. You can yell, and the TV's just.
So why did you choose healthcare? How did you go down that path?
Well, do well, doing good, right? I mean, it's a place that was pretty messy.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're talking about, you started looking at this in the 90s?
Yeah, that's right. So I actually thought maybe I'll be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
There were no doctors in the Bush family except for Uncle Johnny, who died of polio. He didn't really die of polio. He got polio and then hung in there for many, many, many years. But I thought, here's a spot.
Yeah.
I'll still be loved. I was wrong, but I did get the message that I would only be loved in proportion to my good works. That was a misinterpretation. I think in retrospect, my grandmother and parents would have loved me without good works, but that was many thousands of therapy later. So at the time, I had to do something, good,
mm-hmm.
and I had to, imagine myself sending kids to private school or college or whatever.
Right.
And healthcare seemed like a way to do that. And a doctor friend said, try before you buy. You're a little scattered. There's a lot of memorizing to become a doctor. And so I got a job driving an ambulance for the New Orleans Health Department.
Huh.
And that was becoming an EMT is a lot easier than becoming a doctor. But you get to cover a lot of the same territory in terms of pathology that you're exposed to. In fact, you're exposed to it in the wild before you know what it is. And it's romantic and important and exciting and great for somebody in their early 20s, running red lights and whatnot. Solved all my dopamine issues as well as gave me a taste of medicine.
Yeah.
And the big discovery was, of course, that the administration of medicine is a mess.
Yeah.
I didn't know that we had gone, what was it, an average of 9,480% increase in administrative dollars over 1974 to whatever it was, 1990. But I saw the administrative morass and I thought, I don't have to be that good to make this better.
Yeah.
This seems like a place where I could suck and still win.
Yeah.
So that's what sort of set me off down that path.
And so in 1997, you created a company called Athenahealth.
That's right.
In the simplest terms as you can, what did it do?
Shit work that doctors hate and suck at. It started as shit work that we hated and sucked at. Athena was actually Athena Women's Health. So we were going to be a nationwide chain of women's health centers, birth centers. I
saw that.
Doulas, birthing beds, hot tubs. We had the whole thing.
This is 1997. That's before like the doula explosion.
I am an angel investor in every one of those companies. Any of them that found me and knocked on the door, they have my money right now. But at the time, there was physician restriction. They didn't want these witches stealing their market share and undercutting them. And there was safety concerns there, and there was just administrative confusion. But we sort of idealistically / foolishly / wonderfully took those barriers on and ended up building. This was 1997, so it was the beginning of a few cities having really affordable high-speed internet, at every address. DSL for
DSL. Oh my God,
of
course, revolutionary.
So digital over copper. Anyway, we found a group that was, the doctors were already loved midwives. They already had a birth center. And we started automating it and building it into a scalable delivery operation using an internet page.
So it kind of evolved from the birthing centers to like, we can solve this bigger problem of bureaucracy.
Every paper I wrote was like, I'm going to cover the arc of, fascism from its original creation in the Roman Empire through. And then I was like, why don't you just find 1 year and see if you can make a paper that you're finished on time with. And I think my entrepreneurial headset was the same way. I sort of took on the ocean and eventually tried to find one wave that I could control or ride.
Yeah.
And so the subset of women's health that is getting paid and knowing what the patient owes and knowing how to code it. And then little by little, we added all the other sort of bureaucratic nightmares to this essentially web page. We called it Athenahealth. And each one we said, hey, give us a little percentage of your collections and we'll go at risk. We'll give you the systems. We'll do the work in the background. We'll the first cloud before Microsoft, thank God, spent $400 million developing the term cloud. Let's go to the cloud, kids. Remember that the ad where they dove into the TV? We were trying to explain this idea of an internet native systems to people. And it was hard until Microsoft bought those ads.
Do you think you were too early?
For sure. We were too early to do essentially accountable care, a global episodic risk contract, which was later made part of Obama's, whatever, the High-Tech Act or the healthcare, Obamacare. That was 2008, 9. And we were trying to do it in 1997. So a little early. Now I think it's going to be normal.
And some of the biggest obstacles, I'm assuming, in that was explaining to doctors why they need this, explaining the internet layer to it.
Yeah. What is this? Todd Park, my co-founder, had this great speech. He was like, I will give a lifetime supply of fruit baskets to anyone who can give me the name, the industry category of my company. And then I'll so I'll tell you what we do. And then at the end, if you want to, nominate yourself for the fruit basket, tell me what we are. And that was his way of sidestepping into pitching what we did, which was an internet native software enabled business service.
And the business model was what? There was a flat fee or
percentage of collections. And we would do your billing. We would connect you to all the different insurance companies and claim adjudication systems. And we would take all your payments. We'd deposit your checks. We'd reconcile them. We would we just built more and more and more and more automation of a very manual supply chain.
Got it.
And with each chapter, we sort of lost less money and then made a little money. And then eventually, as we got the entire supply chain automated, we made, a shit ton of money. It's a clinical term. But on a price that doctors found surprisingly low.
No, that's really interesting. So I came across this really interesting anecdote where in Athena's early days, you're building this company. You managed to get a meeting with President George Bush early in his term.
W, yeah.
And that's your cousin.
Yeah.
So you end up in his office and he looked at you and he was like, you're a CEO of a company?
Yeah,
and
you gotta be kidding me.
And what did you think?
I was like, yeah, I am. You're president. Which is weirder, dude. And he literally top right drawer of the Resolute desk pulled out this spreadsheet that his Treasury Secretary said, we've got two existential threats as a country, right? Nuclear war and outgrowing our entitlements. And you're on top of one of them. If you automate this, my Treasury Secretary says I could, we could keep the benefits the same if we automated and stopped duplicating what we already do. So I was super impressed. I hope he was, equally impressed that I was capable of being a CEO. I don't know if he was. But
and what was the point of that meeting? What did you hope to get out of it?
I have no idea.
You just wanted to be like
a boondoggle. I was in town. I was like, White House.
That's hilarious. Okay, wait. So you took this company public in 2007, I believe.
Yep.
What was the transition? A lot of my audience are entrepreneurs. Maybe they're scaling their company, et cetera. What was it like going from private company CEO to suddenly public company CEO when you took it public? We
made a pretty big investment in big girl pants, when we started, when we decided we were going to go that way, compliance and infrastructure and account. But because we had built not just we were the back office and the product and the showroom, on the same platform.
Yeah.
We had really good visibility into how a bill becomes a law, how long it would take from somebody meeting with us to going live on our system. We pretty much knew. And when they went live on a system, every appointment in their calendar, we knew in a certain number of days that would turn into $1 for them and 5 cents for us. So we had a lot of the ruggedness that you need to be reliable with forecasting at a pretty young age. As we grew and added products and acquired companies, we probably got wobblier and might have, you know, not that I've ever gone back and relived and rethought every decision I made. You know, maybe we could have doubled down on that more because that was a superpower that we didn't realize others didn't have until we had been public for a decade. Yeah.
And did you like being a public market CEO in the earlier days?
I loved it. I loved being a public market CEO. I loved not the cynics. What are they? The doubters who, you know, why are you doing this? You know, I could give you liquidity and, you know, you have to like have these people see you. And I'm like, these people have 401ks. Like they're going to retire on this. This is amazing. This is part of the American dream is you save a little, you invest it, and there's actually something to invest in that's going to grow. And we've been chipping away, sort of watering that down with, you know, trying to protect consumers, making risk-taking very hard for public companies, making the bureaucratic bloat you have to add on to your saddlebags a lot for companies. And of course, as private equity has been growing, it's harder and harder to make the case for being public. But to me, the greatest reward of being public is that regular people are making the money, not some dopey endowment or, you know, some 2 and 20 dude right down the street here. So I you enjoyed that. I loved it, and I loved getting run out of it. I loved that, you know, that these that it doesn't take much to knock a guy who looks like he might be there forever right over.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So in 2017, activist investors started kind of sniffing around, namely Paul Singer's Elliott Management. What was your initial thought when this kind of started happening? Did you think you were really going to be at war with them, or did you think this is just going to blow over?
We had already had a big short squeeze with a big negative campaign from Greenlight Capital.
Yes, I remember.
I didn't know what Greenlight was, and I didn't know what Elliott was. And in both cases, I would get calls in the middle of the night that these things were announced. Like, I'm sorry, you've got cancer. You know, like people calling like with condolences. And I was like, as an investor, like, they don't have to like me. You know, I've given the plan. I've given it to the board. We're doing the plan. You know, whatever. I wasn't aware of the sort of speciality in personal ad hominem. And honestly, I didn't think.
Oh, you think you were personally attacked?
Oh, yeah, I think I was. I mean, yeah, I didn't even know what the London Daily Mail was either. I didn't know what Elliott was, and I didn't know what the London Daily Mail was until I found myself on the cover of it for beating my wife. It was a deeply personal program that ran very well for them. And that I wasn't, you know, neither I nor my board was equipped to handle, and didn't honestly think we would need to. You know, we were, the year I got booted, we grew organically over 20% from over $1 billion in revenue. Customer results were good. There's a lot going wrong, but, you know, net thing was going great. It was a big surprise. But even that's kind of, you know, I'm still alive. The company's still alive, you know, vastly more profitable, vastly slower growing. You know, they exited the thing that I thought was the most important next step, which was inpatient care at, you know, making Athenahealth go to the inpatient setting as well as the outpatient setting. But, you know, I talk to people every once in a while that are still there and they still love it. And, you know, I feel like they've switched owners to a new private equity team. You know, I thought it was a really interesting, painful, you know, joy isn't happiness or safety to me. Joy is full expression of life and striving. And it was a joyful experience in that regard.
This is exactly the thing I want to talk to you about, because I think it's such a unique outlook. When I was reading that 2014 Fortune profile of you, I believe the first line was something like, Jonathan Bush sure is having fun for being under attack or something like that. Like you were under attack with that first short seller, but you were still kind of your joyous, kind of, outgoing self.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, you just alluded to some of the allegations that Elliott made.
Yeah.
It really did turn personal. Domestic
Of course, they
violence.
didn't make the allegation. All of a sudden, some private detective went to the Cambridge City Courthouse and got a page of my ex-wife's divorce filing from 20 years ago where she wanted to get full custody. And got it into the London Daily Mail. So I don't know maybe that was just a
coincidence,
total coincidence. But anyway, it wasn't what I was thinking that the fight was about. I thought the fight was about a perfectly good fight, which was, I think a good CEO has one foot firmly planted in the future and is living deeply in what doesn't exist yet. Lives it all day long, thinks about it. What are the doorways like? How do the latches work? And what's our path to get there? Always.
Yeah.
So you always have unplowed fields to grow into. So your reps can grow, your sales force can grow, your revenues can grow, your investors can have more total addressable market to have you pull for them. But I think also probably as you grow, you need to have another foot firmly planted in the present. And, are you making enough money with what you've got? Will you be happy if it ends tomorrow? Did you return enough to shareholders? And I thought I was reading my shareholder base correctly that, don't worry about the present. You're still growing so fast. Don't worry about it. But I think in retrospect, maybe you don't listen to them. Maybe make sure you've got
it's more in the
good weight. And that's, after $1 billion in revenue or maybe $500 million,
Yeah. And like from this.
I think I had publicly said something like, I think net income is a waste of money in a world where corporate profit margins are 40, taxes are 45%. Like, let's wait till they come down and reinvest in growth. We're still getting this great growth.
Elliott didn't think.
I think maybe people might agree with me over a white wine at an investor dinner, but go, wouldn't mind some cash,
Right, right. And the thing that's interesting is like most CEOs enjoy the game of business when it's all business and
missions.
They're going after you. That's fine. It's part of the game. But when suddenly it turns personal, there's allegations about domestic violence and like inappropriate work behavior, things like that. Then it turns personal. Did your demeanor change? Were you like, okay, gloves off, like, oh, we're going to
No, my board had never been attacked either. And so there's this parade of this, like a wolf pack that or seagulls maybe, who follow these investors around and attach themselves. We followed all their advice, which included not saying anything.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah. I mean, I had never not said, I sort of built the company's reputation and mine with it on extreme candor.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's accusations and the candor's gone. It turns into silence. What's the semiotics there? Maybe he's guilty, but I worked for the board, and that's what the board thought we should do. So I shut my mouth. And maybe we'll never know the road not taken.
Yeah.
From my perspective, if I had it to do again, I would have said more.
What would you have said?
It's a good question. I think in particular about the things that came into the press, I would have said that I thought that this was beneath the lowliest capitalist, that it was impossible to contextualize this piece of paper from 20 years ago, and that therefore it was chosen, and that is disgusting.
But that is part of Elliott's playbook a little, right?
It is, but no one's ever said it, I don't think. No one's, they all had the same advisors, I guess.
Yeah.
And look, there was a pretty good case. I mean, we were only making $150 million on $1 billion, even though we had a 70% gross margin. Like that's a good case for getting rid of me. What ended up happening is what I feared would happen, which was that they weren't really about fixing it. They were about lawn darting it and buying it and flipping it. And that was my fear. And the problem is when you're the CEO, it's your job to represent the shareholder, and you make a lot of money. And so part of what you're being paid for is some statistical likelihood of getting a bullet in your head.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the job. And it's okay. It's really, I'm riddled with shame and negativity and all kinds of, and relief. Yeah. Every emotion. Relief? Oh God, the day the board chair came and fired me, I was suiting up. I had finally gotten permission to go and do a recording with a CNBC contributor who taught at Yale. And so they were going to let me go to New Haven and film and a response to the accusations. And on the morning that I was heading to the airport, the chairman came to the door and said, it's unanimous. You're not going. And tomorrow you're resigning. And that lovely guy, I had a pretty big role to play in everyone who hired me, everyone who was on the board, who was hired to the board. So, at two, Brute's my buddy. I don't mind if it's him that does me in. And the weight of all of that public, just stoically letting people say really rough things, and then comment on them. Like, nobody wanted to pick up the story except for the London Daily Mail, but then everybody was happy to comment on the story once it was in the news. Right. And so then it's like Wall Street,
It's like piling on. Yeah.
So the relief was nice. And, I did what the board said. I believe in governance. In an era here where I'm not sure everyone does as much as I thought everyone did, and had it tested, and glad I stuck with it.
At that point, did you ever think you would start another company?
I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Well, for a while there, this was Cancel Central, right? I didn't know if I was going to get a job driving Uber.
This was what, 2018?
Yeah, June of 2018. This was in the middle of the Weinstein trial. This was a lot, Me Too, and all these accusations were made. We tried to respond to them as fast as they came in, but I didn't know. I instead said, "Look, I've got a lot of kids. I've got a lovely then fiance. I'll just be a dad, And called my brother. It's the first phone call I made when I got fired. I walked to the back of the house. He walked out. And I said, call Billy, heart racing. And I was like, I just got fired. And he said, you'll buy clubs. You'll buy them now. Get on Amazon and buy golf clubs. You're going to have a great summer. You deserve it.
Hilarious.
Get the clubs. You never golf with me. Golf is fun. Play games. Wow. And he regaled me and he made me cry and laugh. And I ordered my first set of golf clubs from Amazon and went off to North Haven Island and saw my kids and made more kids with Faye, and things were okay.
Wow. Yeah. So that public firing, how did it affect you personally?
Well, failure is good for you, but it's not fun. I think whenever somebody gets ripped down, there's whatever accumulated assholification has been going on, needs to be scrubbed. We all need that. Yeah. Some of us use marriage and some of us use God and some of us use good friends and wine. But there is, when you're wiped out, you do scrub some of your arrogant barnacles off your hull.
You think it made you more humble?
Oh, yeah. I thought I wasn't in need of any humbling, Paulina, but maybe I might have been. I'm not sure.
It's like the before and after the fall.
I had hubris. I didn't think anybody would attack. I thought my shareholders were completely aligned with my strategy. I checked with them all the time.
Got it.
And so I just wasn't ready for the idea that there would be a new shareholder who wasn't one of our shareholders, who would become one in one night and then say, nope, that entire agenda is the reason we're here and it's all exactly wrong.
Yeah.
And you should be fired immediately and your company should never be public again.
You said something really interesting in an interview. You said, my experience is in running a company with a gun to your head is no way to run a company. Better to just say, pull the trigger. What did you mean by that?
I think we were, and we were not our best selves as a company with the secrecy and the fear of what are they doing, and the detectives that were following people, or was that, people not talking, but instead you're not emailing or texting, but
like a sense
only
of
getting on calls with the lawyer present, and then only asking questions and not asserting anything. This was a company with 10% market share of just ambulatory physicians.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we were trying to, I thought this was an $80 billion revenue opportunity.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we had the caution of, Cigna or something. And, which, great company. I love Cigna.
Yeah.
But a company that had been around for hundreds of years, that had reached its extent and was optimizing. And I just, I felt like that's not good for whoever owns these shares. Somebody should be going for it. If you want to really turn it into just profit, I guess do it, but do it with abandon, not with this gotcha sort of spying, innuendo, kind of hurtful energy. I mean, the energy at Athena was optimistic, and fail friendly. And all of a sudden failings were like proof of something. And I'm like,
right.
I mean, I fail every day, 100 times a day. Luckily I had 103 attempts. So there were 3 non-fails and we made it to the next day.
And I'm assuming people started leaving once all this started happening.
We had people leaving. Yeah. We had people leaving. We had people not joining.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to go to companies that have Elliott in them. Key technology hires mostly.
So you don't believe in fighting fire with fire?
I didn't like the degree of silence.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I don't know how I would never try to besmirch someone's personal character, not knowing them for a business return. I don't think anybody should do that. But I think we didn't make our case very assertively. We did a lot of listening tours. I'm like, why are we listening to them? We already know. Well, you can only just ask them what they think. So we didn't advocate. And subsequently, when I watched Disney advocate for their plan and really campaign for it and name the attacker who had a different point of view, and talk about the attacker's track record with these things, and talk about all the stack of carcasses when companies get over leveraged to get push cash out to get an activist out. And I don't think I would overrule my board had I to do it again. If they were if it was the same board and they said just shut up and do it, and I work for them, I'd work for them. But I think I would make a different case to the board. I'd say, hey, I can now say I've seen this, and it's a trick. Our fiduciary duty is to the returns of the grannies that have this stock. And that's who we've been looking out for, and we should fight for our plan.
Yeah. Interesting. So
I think it's, I mean, here we are in Midtown, where there's lots of activists and lots of long investors. And I don't know how many people notice. I mean, Athena was traded at $6 billion and traded a few years later at $17 billion.
Right.
So nice flip for Elliott.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many, was it big enough that people noticed, hey, we just lost, the long holders there lost $11 billion.
Oh, interesting.
If we had said, Elliott, get out of here, or fire Bush, but keep going, or don't sell I think there is an unconscious assumption that activists are on the same side as the long holders.
Interesting.
And I think that is not true. May be true from time to time, but it is mostly not true.
It doesn't
today.
always align.
Yeah. And I hope long holders are going, wait a minute, maybe they're not just an accelerator of what I want. Sometimes they are. I mean, there are companies that belong in the dumpster, and they should try to get as much cash out of them before they hit the dumpster. And activists are great at that, But I don't think that's always true. When you run out of the obvious dumpster candidates, you start to go into growers.
Mhm.
and you treat the growers like dumpster candidates, you destroy shareholder value in the long term.
Interesting. So this is kind of an interesting question, but I wanted to ask you, was there a criticism that Elliott had that you now think is valid or was valid?
Oh, endless. I mentioned the 1 foot in the present and the 1 foot in the future, which was, I think, the CEO of Disney as a quote. I think he sort of was where I saw it on some streaming blob. But I was both feet in the future. And that was a mistake. And of course, I made countless hiring mistakes. And, and in my pursuit of extreme candor and a comforting workplace, I think at some point I may have made some younger employees not used to that level of raw communication uncomfortable. I don't know. I think, I don't know, because I don't, same place, different time, same place, I don't know. But I think those were all valid. Certainly the lack of profitability was a valid concern. And I agreed. And I cut, I don't know what it was, 500 people in a period of a few months, and fired them all myself and gave them all a hug and said thank you and had a very transparent process about it. But I did it because I thought Elliott was right. So for sure, there's lots they had that was right.
What advice would you give to a CEO who finds themselves in the midst of an activist investor battle?
I think the biggest thing to do is to try to hang on to who you are and stay being who you are.
Even during the personal attack?
With a bullet in your head. Yeah. Even with a gun to your head. Just keep being yourself. Actually, you had that guy from Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Who just keeps being himself. And he literally has a gun to his head.
Right.
My gun was cancellation and, lost some stock options or whatever. I think that's the most important. You had a mission. You had your board aligned with it. Stand up for it. And the advice is to boards as well, because I also think if you're being your best self, you listen to your board.
Right.
You don't go rogue on them.
Yeah. It's hard to listen to the board when you yourself want to do something else, but
yeah. But that's being your best self.
Yeah. Did that experience change you at all? Are you still this fun-loving, outspoken individual, or have you changed as a result?
Well, I think I think dings and dents are wonderful for character building, for sense of humor, for compassion. I get calls from people who are being attacked.
Oh, you do?
I do. And I'm flattered. And my hug is a different one than, I'm so sorry, somebody who hasn't actually had a great fall.
Yeah.
And so I'm lucky to have that hug to give, and wouldn't have had it without that experience. I think everything in life is all right. I mean, it's up to you if you decide to make it something you're thankful for. But I strongly recommend it, regardless of what it'll be, right?
And so in 2020, you founded a new healthcare company called Zus Health.
Zus Health.
What does it do now, and how is it different from Athena?
Yeah. So I don't know how technical to get here on this podcast.
Give me general and then somewhat technical.
So the general idea, Athena had a superpower, which was that there was one insurance card list with a rules engine across all the customers. So if you came into one Athena doctor with your, Aetna card, and then you went to another doctor with the Aetna card, that card was already in the database, and all the rules about how to bill for your card carried across. What didn't carry across was your chart, your records, your allergies. But
is that HIPAA compliant? Can you?
Well, if both of the people are doctors who intend to treat you, then obviously they're on the good side of the HIPAA wall.
Okay.
If you went into a bowling alley and they knew, it would be a problem. But And so Zus is attempting to has built, got it, a sub-basement that is a single, always on, API first, longitudinal record that speaks in one voice. All the different systems have their way of coding things. It all gets mapped to one single code language that machines can use, eyes can see. So there is now one pure, complete record of each
that follows
person
me around
wherever you go, right?
Got
And
it.
so, and it sits inside Athenanet, inside eClinicalWorks, inside of all of Athena's competitors, just as cleanly as it would have sat in Athena if I had finished the work there. I was in one of the great criticisms that Elliott had was how much I was spending on R&D, but not putting out any new features.
I see.
And that was because I was trying to re-platform this, to try to create a services-oriented architecture that would allow all the doctors to be able to share clinical content in a useful way. So needed to create one single sub-basement. Turns out I think it's better to do that without a dog in the EMR hunt, but without being competitive with other EMRs, so that nobody minds you being inside.
So is Zus Health not competitive with Athena?
No, Zus is not, or any of the other. So Athena is kind of a workflow tool. You know, you check in, you type in first name, last name, and you click next, and then you get moved into maybe the MA medical assistant, and then the doctor documents all of that workflow and all of the compute to then turn those things into reports or claims. Zus doesn't do any of that. Zus is just one thing, like Stripe. Stripe's like just an API to take a payment.
Yeah.
And you go into that Stripe website, you go to their developer kit, and you see these beautiful pictures of 800 different ways. I want my watch to take a Visa. I want, Venmo to click, and there they all are. And you just grab a little code and drop it into your, whatever your product is, and you take Visa, That's Zus. Zus sits inside all those places. If you want the whole story of a patient rather than the blind men and the elephant story, which is whatever you yourself or your staff have typed about a patient. And everybody wants that. I mean, there's no doctors like, gee, I wish I didn't know 70% of your record. No, they want to. Now, they don't want it to take more time, so it needs to be rationalized, encoded in one single logic chain so that you're not translating this lab result over here to that one to see if they're the same or different. There has to be a lot of cleanup for doctors to want it. And then, they have to make more money wanting it. They don't mind being inconvenienced to make money. That's part of being any job. So the other thing Zus has to do is make sure there's ways that they make more money seeing more truth. And that relates to risk contracts and quality measure scores and medical record department activities that Zus can automate out and speed up by virtue of the fact that we have the whole story now.
And what is the significance of Zeus's name? Because Zeus is, according to Greek mythology, the father of Athena.
www Athena, who's your daddy, was taken. So we shortened it to Zus.
Got it.
And we all thought it was funny.
Okay.
For a while, we called it Not Zus. And then my JB Directs in Slack was called Not JB Directs. And we had all kinds of jokes about it. But, the basic idea is, Athena did a marvelous job getting doctors onto the internet.
Yep.
And that created endpoints for an information economy that hasn't quite been born yet. There's been progress, but healthcare is still very much an in-person analog industry sector. But those migrations of those paper charts and those workflows to something electronic, Athena, Epic, Cerner, whatever the names, allows a next generation of digital first care to be born. And that's freaking compelling. Yeah.
And so Zus is venture backed. You've raised more than 40 million?
Yes, we have.
40 million in venture capital?
Yeah, I think
is it
70?
70, okay.
Elliott would also say he doesn't know his balance sheet well enough,
He doesn't know his
my
venture
mission statement very well. My balance sheet, I've got Jason. He does a nice job.
Yeah. Okay. So upwards of, 70.
I think it's like 70 so far, maybe.
Given your past experience, would you ever take Zus public?
100%.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, God, yeah. I'd go right into this valley of the shadow of death I do have 30 vote shares right now. So
Oh yeah,
I did have a fool me once.
Yeah. So you have control.
I have a little less likelihood of being easily broken into. But even if I didn't, listen, this is what we have. Eat the frickin' hemlock. Let's go. Let's get after the truth. The truth is the American dream is what holds us together. And if it's exclusively available to the 2 and 20s and their shit kind of maybe lost their way university endowments, then the whole thing falls apart. Mm-hmm. So let's make it a better stock market. Let's make it run better. Let's give new avenues for it. Let's challenge NASDAQ and NYSE. Let's challenge the freaking SEC. Chasing risk away from investment. Like, what? Let's do that stuff, but let's eat the hemlock and live by the rules and give people liquidity, not just the little group, not the our kind deer.
Yeah.
You know,
but they're funding you right now, the little group.
They are, and they're getting better at seeking capital themselves, limited more broadly.
Right.
But I think that's right. I would love to see a world where, and we're seeing it, aren't we? Kickstart and other.
Yeah.
We're seeing capital formation even earlier.
Yep.
I'm sort of, I guess I'm old school. Like I assumed VC was where you went to get the early money. And I will say, like Julie Yu from Andreessen Horowitz was the one who came and like busted open the curtains of my life and said, shave, bathrobe off. It's noon. Go make a company. Stop being a baby. You know, I know you want to be a father, whatever, go to work. And I was like, but I know all their names now. You get out.
Yeah.
And my kid's like, what are you doing? Like, but I did feel that call from her and other VCs, and was honestly, I found it very validating.
Yeah.
And the cold start is a hard step in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of cold starts work.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I don't need to run this. I'll tell you this. If Zus goes public, I won't be the CEO. Not because I wouldn't love it. I would adore it.
Uh-huh.
But I also adored, as Jeff Bezos said, the fourth grade. I think the cold start is different from the running of a business. The cold start takes luck and reputation and faith, and there's an alchemy to get past sort of 10 or 20 million.
You like that early trenches.
I don't know if I like it, but it's really important.
Yeah.
It's really important in a world where all the movies are sequels, you know, and all the shows are binges with 29 episodes, basic variations on the same episode. An original thing, I was convinced is worth doing twice, that I wasn't retreading.
Mm-hmm.
And I had obviously invested in, I think I invested basically my entire Athena fortune in startups.
Wow.
Part of my like cross-bearing, like, you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I think you called me a serial entrepreneur. I'm like a cereal with one flake. Only Athena.
With one
like
flake.
In a fork and a knife, like cutting up my one cereal flake. This will be the second flake in my bowl if Zus keeps going like it is.
Looking back, do you think the healthcare system is more or less broken than it was when you started Athena in 1997?
Oh, God. The healthcare system has, it's less broken.
Okay.
And it has vastly more potential energy ready to go kinetic.
Interesting.
In other words, the playbook set, the number of playbooks as yet unplayed that could create enormous savings and enormous improvements in health status that are just ready to rock, that need to get cheaper, that need to get more efficient, that probably need Zus, a lot of them. Like a lot of these are virtual first solutions that wrap over the top of the traditional sort of hospital monopolies that are run by wonderful people and supported by wonderful people, but do end up acting a little bit like the troll under the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a billy goat goes by and, well, you got to get an MRI from me for $3,000, even though it cost me $90. That crew, that collection, that cohort of digital health companies really, really stand to reconfigure all of medicine.
Interesting.
In a really profound way. Now, we keep inventing new and exciting ways of keeping people around longer.
Yeah.
Which by definition, will make the thing more expensive.
Right.
And we find drugs for orphan diseases that are very, very expensive. And so that's the current we're fighting against. But if you look at the ability to automate out, make available, make very cheap the stuff that we sort of historically thought of as healthcare, it's just unbelievably exciting.
Yeah. Looking forward, what is Jonathan Bush's legacy?
I don't know. I can't wait to find out. I know that my soul is alive when I am setting out on nearly impossible, noble missions with people I love. If I'm doing that, it could be trying to cross the Penobscot Bay when it's a little too rough, but mom is there alone. Or it could be trying to get Zeus from 0 to 1, or maybe now 0 to 3 or something, 1 to 3. It could be trying to make Maine politics, spiral a little less. Anything where you set out on something that's wicked hard, but feels like, wouldn't it be great? You look around your friends, wouldn't it be great if ... To me, that's what I love. And if I make it a little bit infectious so that more people love that and do that, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah.
I'd be thrilled.
Final
part of it is like, it wouldn't be a hard mission if there was no chance you'd get killed or canceled. We have a group of old farts on an island in Maine called the Big Boys Camp. We go to summer camp. I'm the youngest, just to give you a sense, I'm the youngest big boy. And our motto, safety second. And I believe that when you set out on noble, nearly impossible missions with people you love, you are putting safety second. But if safety was first, you'd never go to sea.
Interesting. It's a great way to put it. My final question for you is that I ask everyone, how do you define the word success?
Your kids come home. I think whatever you go do.
Yeah.
Because you push on them and life pushes on them, and they know you and fear you less. Know you better, fear you less. And if they still think you're worth it, that's probably the number one indicator that you're doing okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for being with us today.
Sure. I loved it, Paulina.